Let me first thank Professor Devi Gowda and his executive committee for inviting me and United States Soybean Export Council for this important event. I feel honored. Professor Gowda, Dev Gowda, decided the topic as well. He used his wisdom to decide the topic. When it is coming from somebody of his caliber, I didn't have a choice, I obliged. I thank you very much. Can I have the controls? Importation of soybean meal or soybeans for crushing. So it is the very challenging questions for the region and India as well. Right, soybean meal is the most widely used protein meal in the world, and for many reasons, and that is by far the best protein meal as well. It contains a lot of protein and rich with all the essential amino acids. And if you look at the essential amino acids in soybean meal, it is compared with the ideal amino acid balance that is required for poultry. And apart from this essential amino acid, it also contains fairly high amount of energy, which is very important. And it is also rich in many other nutrients. So if it is processed properly, I say properly, that is very palatable and digestible material as well. The conundrum that we have is whether to go for importation of soybean or soybean meal or soybeans and do crushing here. Let's look at the composition of soybean and what are the key components of that. The oil, which is about 20% of the soybean, is probably the most expensive component. And we have proteins, which is about 37%, which is equally important as well. Oil is important because it is expensive. It mainly goes as a food for humans. I think what we use is a byproduct of cooking oil industry. And also there is a growing demand for this soybean oil to produce biodiesel in developed parts of the world. This is one of the key factors which will determine our choice, because biodiesel production means the value of soya oil will be higher and the value of soybean meal will come down. And then we have proteins, which is used for both for humans as well as for animals. Then we have hull, which we don't want to import, but that is there as well. That doesn't have much nutrients. Why do we need to process soybean meals? I think something that we all know. It contains a lot of anti-nutritional factors, mainly trypsin and chymotrypsin inhibitors. Because of that, the protein availability, amino acid availability is impaired. And there are quite a lot of other anti-nutritional factors as well. But good thing about that is we can deactivate most of these compounds because they are highly heat labile. But you need to apply heat treatment, that is, you need to apply proper heat treatment. Temperature is important, length of temperature exposure is important, moisture content, particle size, amount of physical damage imposed during the process, and cooling, drying, and technology what we use, and knowledge is very important. If we are going to do crushing here, all these factors will come into play. If you look at the soybean crushing, there are two processes mainly widely used in the world. One is solvent extraction. Solvent extraction is done by nonpolar solvents. Mostly used nonpolar solvent is hexane, which is very hazardous substance, and this process is extremely expensive as well. But it is quite efficient. You can go for the last drop of oil you can extract. And then easier method is expeller. You press press and soybean meal and get the oil out of that. Whatever the coming out as crude oil, either the refined for human consumption and go for any other purposes as we discussed. Then the leftover, which is the oil cake, is heat treated to use in livestock. There are some processing methods: cooking, boiling, autoclaving, the roasting, steaming. There are various ways of applying heat treatment. But what I am quite interested in talking about today is extrusion, which is very important if we think about importing seed and process here in India or in our region. But when we are applying heat, the ultimate objective is not necessarily killing all the anti-nutritional factors. You need to preserve all important nutrients as well. It's a delicate process. If you apply heat, you can definitely destroy your anti-nutritional factors. More you apply, you have better chance of destroying that. But same time, if you apply heat for long period of time and high heat, there are reactions which will make the nutrients, especially amino acid, less available. So you got to be very careful where do you have the balance. Extrusion. Literally, it's a very, simply, extrusion is pushing large amount of volumes, either whole seeds or broken seeds, through a small barrel that generate heat, pressure, and breaking down. That makes, because of the temperature and all the pressure, product is cooked, all the anti-nutritional factors will be deactivated, and it ruptures the oil cells and release oil, which makes oil far more digestible. And one of the options pork industry have is to go for that. Extrusion, then what you have is full-fat soybean meal. So advantage of that is, because of the high oil content, you can use that as an energy source as well. You have protein plus energy. And when you have oil embedded in the ingredients, your mixing is going to be easier. You don't need to add oil separately, and that can create issues as well. When you mix in the mixer, you may need post-pelleting liquid application and serious other stuff, but if you go for full-fat soya, most important component in this, which is oil, has to be given to animals. But you can diversify your options by extrusion and expelling. You have the extruded products, then you mechanically press and get some oil out. And that can be either refined or used in. Other important thing is, by doing that, you can cater the demand of the industries. The producer can decide the amount of oil that you want to leave. Depending on the circumstances and the demand, you can leave either entire 19% of oil there, 13, 12, 8 or 3%, whatever matters for the industry. So if you do that, you come up with the nutrient matrix with the increasing energy and decreasing protein. So I think nutritionists would love that. Factors determining decision whether to import soybeans or soybean meal: price of soybean versus soybean meal. Price of soybean is always higher than soybean meal, with biodiesel into play, so that gap will be widening. And then the investment, taxes, transport costs, the quality, technology what we have, country requirements, other ingredient choices, especially cereals. I heard in one of the last meetings that India use a lot of broken rice now, And if you have used broken rice to match energy, you can use one of those oil mills, I guess. And just if you have a choice to go for a soybean meal importation, then you have choices as well. Most of these soybeans and soybean meals are coming from either US, Argentina, or Brazil. They are the largest exporters. And if you compare these, you just don't look at, if you go for a soybean meal, we don't just look at the protein value, but look at the entire nutrient matrix, especially digestible amino acids, critical digestible amino acids. You have, the choices there. And then, the energy, we use 25% to 30% soybean meal, poultry meal. Because of that, energy is very significant. Right, thank you very much.